Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Julian Grace, and today's deep dive conversation is with investigative reporter Cullen Browder to talk about how universities are using social media to track and keep an eye on students. In a recent report, Cullen identified seven universities in North Carolina that are using social media to track student involvement in protests, potential threats, and drug usage. Cullen, is this an invasion of privacy?
Well, that's the real question here. Some people feel like it is, and other people don't, because this company that has been hired by a number of North Carolina universities, they track what they consider public social media. So student social media that is out there, that is accessed by the public. They can also access email, but at this point, we have not found any instances where universities want them to access email. But just the fact that universities are tracking social media accounts to, like you said, look for, are there signs that someone might hurt themselves, might hurt others? They feel like that is a good use of taxpayer dollars. But then they have expanded that to other usages. So, looking at what's the real protest going on these days, that kind of thing.
So if I'm a student at one of these universities and I'm posting away or possibly emailing away, it's possible someone could be watching that.
Absolutely. In terms of especially your social media accounts, in terms of emails, like I said, this company has that capability, but we have not found any evidence, and universities have told us that they're not checking into student email accounts. So again, it's a real quandary. You've got some students we spoke to who just feel like this is a real invasion of my privacy, and others who are like, well, if it's a public social media account, I mean, anyone can access it anyway. So if the university does, that's up to them. Of course, some other students are like, we shouldn't be funding this. It shouldn't be taxpayer dollars that are going down this road. And now some state lawmakers are taking a look at this as well.
I want to touch on a company called Social Sentinel. Now, universities are hiring this company to monitor student posts. Give us an example on exactly how this company works.
So this is a company that's been hired by school systems all over the country, universities, K through 12. In fact, a couple of years ago, we did stories on the fact that a number of K through 12 systems in North Carolina had also hired this company. It's since been taken over and changed its names, but it's still doing exactly the same thing. So, for instance, at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, they started monitoring through this company social media posts during the whole Silent Sam controversy, the Confederate statue that had been on campus for decades. And then the heat really turned up. Students were very frustrated that it remained there. And then ultimately there were all kinds of protests, and finally the statue was torn down. Well, it turns out through documents that we've been able to access that the university was monitoring all types of student social media accounts to see where's the protest going to be, what time is it going to be, who's involved, and on the other side, what are some of those social media accounts, trying to keep track. And the university says, look, the reason we're doing this is a matter of safety on campus. Are things getting out of hand? Who's saying what? Are there real threats out there? That kind of thing. And that's the reasoning on the part of the university.
So the company collects all this information and says, here you go. Here's all this information we've collected to the university.
They will track words. They'll pick out certain words that they would consider a threat or something that might lead them down a road. This is something the university might need to know about, and then they pass that on to the university, yes.
All right, well, here are some of the universities involved with this tracking. They include North Carolina State University, the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill, Duke University, North Carolina A&T, East Carolina University, and the University of North Carolina in Asheville. Are there more out there in the state that are using programs similar to this?
In terms of this particular product, these are the ones we know of. And we should also note that UNC Chapel Hill's still using it, Duke's still using it. North Carolina State stopped a few years ago when they changed their the police chief. The former police chief back, Jack Mormon, was all about this, but then when he left, they transitioned out of it. And some other universities have done the same because I think they evaluated, is this the best use of our resources? And obviously, I mean, UNC still feels like it is. Duke, the same thing. And again, they keep reiterating to us that, look, we're just looking at public social media accounts. We're not getting into emails. We're not getting into that kind of thing. And I also want to mention that this all came through the National Institute for Computer Assisted Reporting, which we're part of.
Okay.
And so when we're able to get data, we can share data with this whole network of reporters, journalists all across the country. In this case, it was a reporter, a journalist with the Dallas Morning News, Ari Sen, who really mined a lot of this information and actually UNC grad, and he was there when the Silent Sam protests were going on. So he got interested and started all these public records requests, and we worked with him through a lot of the information he was able to get.
Oh, so much more. All right, Cullen, I think this is a great place to pause. We'll pause here for a break. When we come back from the break, investigative reporter Cullen Browder will continue his discussion with us as we continue to talk about why universities are using social media to track students. And the question I will ask next, can this type of monitoring prevent violent attacks on campus? Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Julian Grace, talking with WRAL investigative reporter Cullen Browder. And today we're talking about how universities are using social media to keep track of students. Cullen, can this form of monitoring prevent possible violent attacks on campus?
It's really hard to quantify that just because universities are saying, look, we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to, for that next school shooting, we're trying to see, is there anything out there in the public realm through social media? What's being said? Is that a real threat? Do we need to take that seriously? Do we need to get law enforcement involved to investigate? And that's the reasoning behind this. Whether it's actually worked, whether it's actually, have they identified someone who was about to hurt themselves and was putting stuff out on social media? I mean, the company contends, yes, it has worked. I think the real question is, what is the balance? What's the risk reward of, are you getting to a point where you're going to chill freedom of speech? Students might not feel comfortable because now they realize that their every move is being monitored in terms of their social media accounts, what they're posting. So that's the real balance of what the universities and what our taxpayer dollars are paying for.
I think it's critical that you hit on that point. We want our schools to be proactive, right? To get ahead of things, particularly when it comes to protecting our students. But I think there is a balance, as you stated, right?
Right. And in fact, so there's a state representative in Orange County where UNC Chapel Hill is located, Greg Meyer. And he saw this report and just was blown away. He called it absurd. He said, our universities are spying on our students to try and quash protests. Well, the universities don't see it that way, but his point is there needs to be a clear policy that students know what to expect from the university in terms of them monitoring their social media accounts, potentially their email accounts. Now, again, the universities say they're not monitoring that. But his argument is, if you're going to do this, you need to spell it out. Okay. Every student needs to know this is what the university is going to do. So if you're posting on social media, the university might be monitoring. Is it a threat? Are you going to hurt yourself? Are you going to hurt somebody else? Is this protest potentially violent? That kind of thing is the real balance.
I think that kind of gets to my next question. Do we know how long this information is stored, and can some of this information come back to haunt some of the students?
Well, I think absolutely, and it's sort of the lesson we've all learned with social media that anything you post could be out there forever. And if you're having a bad day and you're posting something that can be mined, that can be investigated, and there was one instance through the public records that we were able to see that the University of North Carolina not only used this strategy of monitoring social media posts, they actually called in the SBI to do it for them. So they got law enforcement involved, not just this company, because there was a lot of chatter about anti-abortion protests and then opposition protests to that. And I think they were concerned that this could get ugly, this could get out of hand if we don't get on top of it. And I think that's where our state representative, Greg Meyer, was really concerned that, so you're doing this, you're getting the SBI involved. Are you going to try and stop freedom of speech here? Are you going to try and really get in there and break up legitimate protests? And that's the real question.
So has the company given any type of indication how long they will store this information? And are they saying, will they ever sell this information?
They have not indicated that to us through our reporting. I think in terms of what they're able to mine, I think it really depends on what the university wants. If the university wants, something from a decade ago or something from 3 weeks ago, I think that's really going to depend on what the university asks for and what this company is able to produce for them. They have not, through our reporting, we have not been able to identify that exactly.
You mentioned some students feel as though they're being spied on. Are universities taking this into consideration? You spoke about NC State changing their path, but then UNC staying on this path. Do you find more universities are reassessing, is this the best option for us?
I think absolutely. And I think in terms of Representative Meyer, they're going to have to, because he's now asked an oversight group at the state legislature to actually investigate this. And how exactly are universities using this product, and what kind of policy do they have? He wants a clear policy for all the North Carolina universities within the UNC system to spell out to students, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do, instead of just after the fact saying, oh, well, we're not looking at emails. He wants that in writing, in a handbook for students so they know what they're dealing with.
So before that school year or that semester starts, I know exactly what type of information will be monitored.
I think that's where we're headed in terms of what this representative is calling for, instead of just saying, well, we could be watching everything. He wants it spelled out so there's a clear policy that all the universities within the UNC system have to follow.
From your travels and from your research, do you find that more universities are willing to attach themselves to programs like Social Sentinel or distance themselves?
I think it gets back to your point earlier that because of all the bad stuff that's happened, the campus shootings, the suicide rate increasing, universities are being pushed into a realm of, okay, what can we do to head this off? What can we do to prevent this? And I think they're looking at all kinds of options, and this is one of those options. Should we have seen the signs ahead of time? Should we have seen that this student was really struggling, was having a hard time, and was reaching out through their social media account, I need help, I'm threatening someone else, I'm threatening myself, and we miss that. And I think our universities are trying to get to the point where, okay, what are we doing to try and identify potential threats, safety, to our students, to our campus, and what can we do to prevent that, again, with this whole balance of what's privacy and what's public.
Has the universities given out any statistics on, hey, we did this and it prevented a suicide, or it prevented an attack, or it prevented this?
To our knowledge, the universities have not. And I think part of that gets to, for instance, North Carolina State stopped using this sort of monitoring process. And maybe they didn't tell us this, but maybe they didn't get the rewards that they were hoping for through this investment. Now, UNC, Duke, still using it. So obviously they see some value there. In fact, UNC calls it, best practice in the industry in terms of trying to identify potential threats.
Some may wonder, if NC State is no longer doing this, then what are they doing to replace it?
They have not told us that. It's just one of those where I think they invested in this company. There was a contract. They won't say that they felt like, maybe it was an intrusion of our student privacy. They haven't given us that level of detail. They just made the decision to stop going in that direction.
Gotcha. Well, Cullen, thanks for your time. Thanks for your insight, and I look forward to your next project. Thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can also listen to the entire WRAL newscast in podcast form. Find WRAL Newscast in your podcast app. The feed is updated with new newscasts multiple times per day.